Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about conquering your unconscious biases, how to mitigate your internal biases in life. We are all biased. As humans, we tend to make unconscious biases about certain groups or people or ideas in our lives. So although not all biases are bad, today I'm going to be focusing on biases that affect you and others negatively. When we over-rely on our internal biases to guide us in life, we create problems for ourselves. We potentially eliminate the possibilities of adapting our personalities and behaviors to others. And in the long run, we might choose to close ourselves to other opportunities in life. I've often struggled to overcome my own biases. As I've gotten older though, I've been affected by both positive and negative aspects of biases. And I did a lot of personal work to be more critical of my own personal biases as I go on throughout my life. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to recognize your unconscious biases and tips on conquering your unconscious biases. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And here we go. When I talk about unconscious biases, I'm talking about the natural blind spots in your brain that forms over time. You're not immune to this. Everyone has this. These are mental shortcuts that our brains tend to make in order for us to survive and thrive in a complex life. Not all biases are bad. Some can be very beneficial. These blind spots or biases that our brain makes can help us navigate when we don't have all the information available to us about the new situation. We rely on our old experience and previous encounters with that specific group, people, or idea to help navigate us. But sometimes when situations are different and a unique circumstance comes along, it might negatively impact us. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to focus on how to overcome negative unconscious biases, so that you can limit the damage that occurs to you and others around you. So now let's talk about how to recognize your own biases. Number one, Autopilot for Humans. When we are going through our lives naturally, a lot of us are going on habit or autopilot. For example, when was the last time you recall intently brushing your teeth or communicating with the coffee barista? These are examples of something that we do so often that our brain just puts us on autopilot. We do things out of habit. We don't think through these things critically anymore, and we tend to gloss over and not make any memories about them. So doing things deliberately and with thoughtfulness will help us combat being on autopilot. When we think through and do things in the present moment, we override our brain's ability to put us on autopilot. Because as soon as you go off of autopilot, it can help you understand your own unconscious biases. Because even though you are aware of doing something, you might not have full understanding of why you're doing it. When you slow down, you start to pull back the layers of the onion and you start to understand the process in which you do things. When we deliberately engage in what we're doing, we tend to pay attention to all the details surrounding that thing. So it's easier for us to analyze and become our own self-critics. This might help us uncover things that we're doing unconsciously and help us to course correct things that are bad. For example, if you see a homeless person on the street walking towards you and you actively try to get away from them, but you wouldn't do that if a normal person was walking to you. So slow down and ask yourself, why are you doing that? Why are you acting in that kind of manner? It could be a legitimate fear that you have about that person based on the way they dress, or it could be an unconscious bias. It takes practice. So if you really want to uncover your unconscious biases, pay attention to what you're doing in life and do things as carefully and deliberately as possible. That way you can unravel all the unconscious things that you're doing without you realizing. Number two, communication habits. What do we talk about all the time? What's on our mind? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a repeating pattern to it? So for example, do you talk about a certain group of people, ideas, something that just doesn't jive with you in your daily life? Awareness about what we're talking about to yourself and to others can help highlight what unconscious biases that we have, because it gives us an indication what we're most passionate about and what are things that we're not fond of. For things that we're not fond of, ask ourselves, why does this bother us so much? Can we live without complaining about it or talking about it? Because at the end of the day, what are the root causes for us to obsess about it and talk about this constantly? What we talk about frequently is often a reflection of what we're currently going through or feeling out. Biases in this case might not be hidden, but it does require you to actively question, why is it on your mind all the time? Number three, ask around. Ask those who know you really well to tell you what your unconscious biases are. People can give you an outside perspective on who you are and what your biases are. They can give you an outside perspective that you might not otherwise get through self-analysis. This does require the person to know you very well and that you trust the person's opinion of you. Hearing unconscious biases from other people can be very difficult to process. I've often asked people what my biases were, and when I got the answer, I wasn't necessarily pleased with it. So if you want the easiest way to identify your unconscious bias, ask those who know you the best. So now let's talk about some of the tips to conquer your biases. Number 1, identify your biases. Before you conquer your biases, you gotta know what they are. So create a list and identify what you want to work on in the near term. So for example, I can learn that homeless people deserve our respect, accept differences from different groups of people, and not generalize genders. So use my earlier suggestions on how to recognize unconscious biases, and it'll give you a great start in creating that list. Unconscious biases are very hard to tackle. You don't want to try to do them all at the same time. So prioritize the ones that are making the most impact in your life. Number 2, be more patient. When we rush into things and make snap judgments, we are letting our unconscious biases rule us. Our brains tend to default on autopilot and do things that we're used to doing before. By slowing down our thinking and being patient, we can override our autopilot. And when we slow down our thoughts, we have a better chance of hearing what we say and uncovering the unconscious biases through them. The theme that I'm impressing upon you is being actively aware of the situation and what's going on from day-to-day life. Being present and in the moment can help us uncover unconscious biases. Patience and being deliberate in what we're doing and communicating can help us eliminate some of our unconscious biases. Number 3, question yourself. When you have unconscious biases that you know you want to overcome, ask yourself, where do they come from in the first place? Recognizing the source of the issue will help you in conquering your unconscious biases. Whether that means talking to a specialist like a therapist or just being exposed to that thing more often. If you want some help on how to question yourself, in my previous video, I talk about the 5 whys to get to the root of the problem. In that video, I give you a simple tool to help you question yourselves multiple times until you uncover the root of the problem. It basically involves you to set up an initial question and then you keep asking yourself why until you get to the root of the issue. I've often used this tool to uncover my own biases. Many times, I had to go really deep in understanding where my biases came from. So I'll put a link down in the description box below so you can check it out. Once we get an idea of what we're biased at, question yourself until you get the root of where it came from. Because then you can start to take action against that bias and work to resolve it. Number 4, destroy your comfort zone. When we do new or challenging things, we uncover a lot about ourselves and others. Things that don't really come up when you're not engaged or being actively challenged. This tip doesn't necessarily resolve your immediate unconscious biases. This is more of a long-term thing. But it does help to prime your brain to accept and adapt to new situations. Biases are often the product of repetition in thinking, ideas, and thoughts. These are things that tend to be comfortable or very familiar to you. When we seek novelty or challenging ourselves, we increase our brain's plasticity. We help our brain to adapt to new and challenging situations. And it helps us to rewrite thoughts and ideas that we have about certain things. When we venture outside of our comfort zone, we meet new peoples, cultures, and ideas. And when we do that, we might prevent future unconscious biases from even forming. And number 5, seek help. When in doubt, seek help from outside sources to help you overcome your unconscious biases. I'm a big fan of asking people for help. It not only brings you closer to that person through vulnerability, but that person can also be your personal advocate for change. This, I admit, can be pretty difficult. If you don't have close friends that you can trust or access to skilled specialists like therapists, this can be pretty difficult. Not only can they help you uncover your unconscious biases, but they can also help you by calling you out when you're communicating that unconscious bias. That in itself can help you filter for the next time you're thinking about saying it. And you'll create a memory of that incident, so in the future you might actually stop yourself from saying it. Because an outside perspective can be the most direct and efficient way in targeting your unconscious biases. So those are some of my tips on uncovering unconscious biases within ourselves. Biases aren't always negative. They can help us navigate a very complex world. But when we develop biases that can hurt ourselves and others, we have to recognize it and figure out a way to try to stop it. By being deliberate and patient in our lives as much as possible, we can mitigate the effects of our brain going on autopilot, which can further proliferate unconscious biases. So if you know your biases and are trying to correct for them, be patient and deliberate in what you're doing. And then question yourself on why you have that bias in the first place, and then seek help as needed to overcome it. So I really hope that this video helped you on your journey to overcome your unconscious biases. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on what kind of biases that you think you have and whether or not you've done anything to change that. And I'll see you next time.